This video is sponsored by Bellesa. We're doing a massive sex toy giveaway, so stay tuned for more details.
Hey besties, it's Sarah. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a vlog where I read your favorite books of 2023. So a few weeks ago, I reached out on my community tab and on my Instagram story and I asked you guys, what are your favorite books this year? And I got over 100 responses, so thank you so much to everybody who let me know what your favorites were. What's so crazy is that despite getting over 100 responses, I didn't get that much overlap. There were only 18 books that got 2 or more votes for them. I don't know why, but I thought there would be books that got like 8 votes, 10 votes, etc. But I guess there just weren't that many new releases from this year that people liked, and so the overlap was a lot less than I thought it was going to be. The top 2 books with 4 votes were How We Go in the Dark and Fourth Wing. I was very much not surprised to see Fourth Wing on this list, but I was surprised to see How High We Go in the Dark. Like, I just didn't think of that as a book that everyone would vote for. One book had 3 people who said it was their favorite, and that was My Dark Vanessa. This was even more surprising than How High We Go in the Dark because it is a much older title, but I guess people do really love My Dark Vanessa. It is a book that a lot of people have put on favorites lists, so I could see why it's still like making its rounds. I also feel like maybe people on TikTok have been reading it. So to create my TBR for this video, I wanted to read the most popular books, but first I had to get rid of all the books that I've read before because I already have read My Dark Vanessa and Fourth Wing and a bunch of other things on this list. And then taking a look at the rest of the books that are left on this list, I also went through and just crossed out books that I'm not interested in reading. I am trying to do some self-care and actually read books that I want to read for vlogs. I will say, since creating this TBR, Shark Heart has definitely piqued my interest a little bit more. I've heard a few more people talk about it, so if you think I should read Shark Heart, let me know in the comments, but for this video I will not be reading it. So obviously the #1 book that everyone said the most was How High We Go in the Dark, so I will definitely be reading that for this reading vlog. So we will go ahead and add that to the official TBR of books that I want to read. And then pretty much everything on this list only has 2 people that voted for it, so I felt like I could just choose what I wanted to read. And so I'm gonna go ahead and read Butcher and Blackbird because this has been a book that I've been super interested in ever since Riley read it for a reading vlog recently, and she highly recommended it to me. For the final book to read for this vlog, I was a little bit torn about which one I wanted to read because there was 3 that I was interested in. This is a time when I thought I should include my patrons on voting and helping me decide, so I'm gonna let them vote between Leech, Anyman, and Notes on an Execution. You all gave me such great books to read for this video, and there were other books that I was also interested in reading, so I thought that I would go ahead and do a Patreon exclusive video. And so for my Patreon exclusive, I'm actually going to read Nettle and Bone and The Last House on Needless Street. So this is kind of the final TBR for this video. We've got my main channel and then we got the Patreon exclusive. I'm excited to read these and I'm excited to see what you guys love about these books. Okay, sorry besties, I do need to interrupt to tell you that this week's video is being sponsored by our friends at Bellesa. Bellesa is a bi-woman company for all things sexuality. They have sex toys, porn, erotica, and more. Their mission is to empower everyone to embrace their sexuality, which I am a very big supporter of. Together we are hosting a giveaway, so everyone who follows the link in the description and fills it out will receive either a gift card or a free vibrator. We're going to talk about 3 of the toys they actually previously sent me the last time they sponsored me, and I will say I have used these, and I'm sorry if that's TMI, but I have used them and the reviews are in. I like them. The first one we're going to talk about is the Pebble. It's beginner friendly and ergonomically built to fit perfectly in your hand. The suction and vibration are controlled independently, and there are no annoying pattern modes, if you know what I mean. Up next we have the Air Vibe. This is honestly my favorite colorway out of all of them. I love the gold with the red. It's very elegant. It's giving, and it's also quite holiday for Christmas. Like if you want to get this in December, I feel like that would be a good purchase. The Air Vibe has dual stimulation for both the G-spot and clit. It is silent but deadly, and the design is inclusive and flexible with an adjustable stem. And then lastly, let's talk about the Thump. This is the toy that does it all. It vibrates, suctions, and thumps. It's designed to be the replacement for all external clit stimulating vibes. It utilizes Bellesa's Pleasure Jet technology, and the True Feel vibrations naturally complement the suction. I love that all the toys come in these discreet cases and they are rechargeable. You can plug them in and just charge them right up, and you can just throw them in your bag if you're going away for the weekend, going on a trip or something, going home for the holidays and you don't want your parents to know what it is. Throw this in and it kind of looks like makeup or something. It'll be a great time for you, especially this one. Like I said, this one really has some holiday looking colors. Everyone who signs up with the link down below will either receive a free vibrator or a gift card, so I definitely think that you should take advantage of that, especially because it's the holiday season. Even if you're not in the market for a toy, maybe you have a loved one who is, I feel like you should probably keep it to like friends and your partner, probably not your mom. I feel like that would be weird to get this for a family member, but But maybe you guys are close like that. I don't know your family. Everything you need will be in the description down below. And thank you so much to Bellesa for celebrating sexuality and sponsoring this video. Okay, besties, I thought filming out here was gonna be a little bit more peaceful, but I feel like there's like airplanes going over, Lily's crinkling some leaves, there's some dogs barking, so I'm very sorry it's not as quaint and nice as I thought it was going to be. But I wanted to check in on the Patreon poll results so we can see what the final book is. I pulled up the poll. Let's see what my Patreon besties have voted on. My prediction before I look at the results is I think they're gonna vote for Any Man by Amber Tamblyn. I don't know why, I just think that that's what they're gonna vote on. Also, I think that might be the book that I want to read the most, so I think that might also be like wishful thinking. Let's go ahead and see. These results are so shocking. 52% of people voted for Notes on an Execution. I am so surprised to see this breakdown. We got 20% of people saying Leech, 28% Any Man, and 52% on Notes on an Execution. So that is the final book for my TBR for this video. Oh my god, besties, I was not gonna update this soon because I wanted to get further in the book, but I just have to talk about this first book that I started because I love it so much. I think it's so cute, which is very weird to say because it is a love story between two serial killers, but I am just live, laugh, loving. It's about these two characters, Sloane and Rowan, and they specifically like to kill like evil people, kind of like Dexter vibes. And at the very start of the book, Sloane is in a bit of a predicament because she was hunting down this pedophile and they got into an altercation as she was trying to kill him. And so she kind of fell into her own trap. So she's stuck in this cage and she's been stuck in this cage for like 3 days. And then Rowan shows up because he was also there to kill this guy, and they start flirting and they meet each other, and he finds out that she is the Orb Weaver, which is like this serial killer that's really well known for the like kills that she stages and all these different things. And he's like a huge fan of her. So he starts like fangirling and he's like, oh my god, I love the Orb Weaver. Like, I'm a huge fan. Like, I'm the butcher, blah, blah, blah. And so they start talking. So he eventually lets her out of the cage and they go on like a sort of date, like they go to dinner and they get to talking, and he basically asks her if she wants to do this like friendly competition where they're going to compete to kill the most like other bad guys, and then whoever wins gets this like particular kill that they're like both looking forward to. And it was just, it's so funny because they're like comparing notes, they're comparing the people that they've killed. He's like, oh my god, you killed that person, I was wanting to kill that person. And she's like, oh my god, you got that guy, I was hunting that guy. And they're just like comparing and they're flirting, and the banter is great. The audiobook is also amazing because it is two narrators. There's a guy narrator and a female narrator because it's dual POV. But what I love is that no matter whose POV it is, if the other character speaks, that actor will like talk. So when they're like flirting and bantering, you get both the female and male narrator together, and it's so fucking cute. Like, I am giggling, I'm laughing, I'm blushing, I'm kicking my little feet. I don't know what it says about me that I love so many serial killer books. I feel like this year in particular, I've been really enjoying a lot of serial killer. Like, I really loved the Mindfuck series, and I also liked Born Darkly, which, by the way, if you like Born Darkly, the guy, the Irish narrator from that is the same narrator in this one because this character is also Irish. So I think it's also reminding me of Born Darkly, and I'm just like, I'm like loving it. It's like kind of a dark romance, but it's also like a romantic comedy, and I'm genuinely not that far into it, but I am having so much fun, which is so exciting because I love when I love books that you guys love. I'm giggling. Also, by the way, this is my friend Emily's dog, Mabel. I'm dog sitting her, and she is a precious little baby. She does, she did it for you guys. She does this thing where she puts her head under your chin, and it is the cutest thing in the world. I love her. I actually named her because when Emily was adopting her, she was like, what should we name our dog? And I said Mabel because Mabel was one of my favorite characters in the Diviner series. I know that it's very random that I'm dressed for Christmas right now, but I just filmed this intro video for a readathon I'm doing on my Patreon. It's called the Secret Santa Readathon, where basically everyone submits their favorite book lists and then they give me a wish list of what they're looking to read, and then I match them with a Secret Santa. It's like this whole little thing. It's very cute. I'm very excited about the idea. But because I already had makeup on and I had my lights and everything, I was like, well, let me tell you guys that I finished Butcher and Blackbird. Unfortunately, did I love it as much as I did initially in the second half? No. I think up to the 70% mark, literally a 5-star book. Like, so fantastic. The banter is amazing. The audiobook narrator, like, I think his name is Joe Arden, like he was slaying. Like, he was slaying my heart, maybe even slaying some other things. Here is where we ran into an issue. All the murdery stuff, all the buildup was amazing. I did not love the sex scenes. They are not my cup of tea. There's a lot of fluids, and if you know even a little bit about me, if you've been on my channel for a while, I don't enjoy sex scenes with fluids. And I know that's a tall ask to say, please don't tell me about cum. It's just who I am. It's how I feel. This is my truth. And unfortunately, it was my thing. There was also a bit of like a BDSM vibe. Like it wasn't full on BDSM, but there was like some like dom behavior. And I also don't love that in sex scenes. I feel like I have very specific taste. And I also feel like the older I get, the more I'm like, do I like closed door romance? And I think the answer is sometimes yes. I don't know, I'm very 50-50 on if I'm gonna like a sex scene or not. And these were not my thing. There was one part, it was like dribbling down her leg and he called it a milky rivulet. I'm sorry, I just scarred you with that. I was scarred when I heard it in the audiobook. But anyway, I still really enjoyed the book and I liked the ending, and there is a sequel coming out next year about some other characters. Like it's about Rowan's brother and Sloane's best friend, and I'm really excited to pick that up. So I definitely will continue to read more from this author. I think Brynne Weaver writes banter like really well, and she writes just the general romance. I just think that I'm not into like really intense smut. So I think ultimately I'm gonna give this 4 stars, and you might be like, you can't judge it just because you don't like sex scenes, and that's not really why I'm giving it 4 stars. I think also up to the 70% mark, there was just so much plot and I was having so much fun. Like there's all these parts where they're like hunting down these other killers, and I was genuinely like laughing out loud. Like I was LOLing, like I was live laugh loving. I was really loving it. But I think the issue is that it's not that I like just because I didn't like the sex scenes, it's also that there were just so many. Like we went from like, oh plot, we're having fun, to like the last 30% is like mostly sex scenes. I mean, there is some more dramatic things that happens, like there's some action for sure, but I would say out of the last 30%, only like 10% of it was action. I feel like 20% of it was sex scenes, and I didn't love that ratio. But I still really liked this, and I feel like I found a new author that I'll definitely read more from, and I would highly recommend this if you're a white bitch like me that likes serial killers, or if you like romantic comedies. Okay besties, I finished Notes on an Execution, and I have some good and bad news. The good news is that I liked it. It was okay. It was fine. I think I'm gonna give it like 3.5 stars. I originally thought I was gonna be giving it 4 stars, but then the longer I got in the book, the harder it was for me to finish. Like I feel like there wasn't really a lot driving the story that made me intrigued enough, and I really struggled with like the last specifically like 45 minutes of the audiobook. It took me like many sessions to finish, and that's really not very much time to listen to, but for some reason I just like could not get myself to finish it because I was not entirely live off love it. I wasn't like not enjoying myself, but I also wasn't enjoying myself, if that makes any sense. For me, I feel like this book is definitely going to be one that's a little bit forgettable. So in this book, we're following a guy named Ansel Packer, and when he was really young, his mother abandoned him because they were being abused by his father, and so he went through the foster system, and while he was in the foster system, it came to fruition that he might be a sociopath. I don't know, they don't really like delve into like what's going on exactly mentally, but I think because of neglect and him like not trusting women, he develops into a serial killer. And so when you open in the book, you are opening first of all in second person, so in all of Ansel's chapters it's saying you, as if we are Ansel Packer, and I'm not really sure why this was done. I really like books written in second person. Like I absolutely love A Dowry Blood, and I also really like You by Caroline Kepnes. Both of those are not necessarily like purely second person because they are like talking to you, like the narrator is speaking to you, but they're still like an I first person. But I also really like The Fifth Season, which has a second person chapter as well. And so I don't know, but I feel like it's very specific when you want to write that way, and I don't really know if it did anything for the story. Maybe it was to humanize Ansel, but I kind of just didn't like Ansel. This was not one of those times that I was live laugh loving a serial killer, especially in comparison to having read Butcher and Blackbird, where I was rooting for those serial killers. I was absolutely not rooting for Ansel. But like I said, Ansel does eventually develop into a serial killer, and he kills I think like 3 or 4 women, and we follow him through his years until he is now on death row and he's about to be executed this day. So every chapter that he has is how many hours he has until he's being executed. I just feel like he was like a little smug loser. Like I did not like his chapters at all. So we don't really follow him specifically as he is growing up. We are following the women around him as he was growing up. So everything we hear about Ansel before his chapters where he is on death row are from these other women's perspectives, which I definitely enjoyed their perspectives a lot more. There was one woman named Safi who has a history with him from when they were children in foster care, and she is now a police officer, and so she's kind of trying to solve his case. We also have his ex-wife, and we have his mother, and I feel like we have, oh yeah, Hazel, which is the twin sister of the ex-wife. And I don't know, was a character study for sure, and I like character studies sometimes, but I think that because this was more of an exploration of just everyone's dynamics, there wasn't any twists, and so I find it very interesting that some people classify this as a thriller, because it's definitely not a thriller. It's more of a, let's explore why Ansel might have ended up this way. And I think ultimately I didn't particularly care or resonate with it. It didn't have the twisty kind of actiony energy that I want in a thriller. And I did go in knowing that it was a character study. I have heard people say that, but again, I thought I was gonna get more out of it, but it felt kind of shallow. Like, I felt like I wasn't getting a lot out of it. I don't know how to explain it. There was just something about it that feels very forgettable to me, and very like, I don't know. I am at a loss for words. It just was lacking a je ne sais quoi. I don't know how to explain it, but when I was first reading, I would definitely say like the first half, I really thought I was gonna give it 4 stars. But then the further I got, the more bored I got, which is never a good sign, because I feel like in a thriller, it should be the opposite, where you're like not sure about in the beginning, and then at the end it like goes crazy or something and you love it. But I feel like the point of this book was not to go crazy. It wasn't giving. It wasn't giving, and I'm sorry to say that, because I know this is a lot of my friends' favorite book. Like, I know, like, I think Gabby loves this, Katie loves this, and I could see like maybe if I had read this for my book club with my patrons, then we would have had like a lot to discuss and go over, and that could have like helped my opinion on it. But I think if we're going solely off of my own reading, it also took me a lot of days to read this. Like, I think I read it for like at least 4 days, and it's not that long. Like, I was really hoping to be done with it in like 2 days, and so I think because I didn't even read it in like 1 or 2 sittings like I thought I would, that was another thing. I don't know. I think I had high expectations for this one, just because so many people that I love on YouTube also love this book, and I don't know, it didn't do it for me, besties, and I'm so sorry. This is one serial killer book that this white bitch didn't enjoy. Besties, I have horrible news. It's really hot in this sweater, so I have to drink some water. But the other horrible news is that I absolutely despised How High We Go in the Dark. I feel like there's something wrong with me, because everyone loves this book and I hated it. I hated it so much. I really believed that I liked sci-fi. I really did. I have some favorite sci-fi books that I absolutely loved, like The World Gives Way, The First Sister, other sci-fi. I'm sure there's other sci-fi that I have enjoyed, but this was not giving. I did not like it at all. I do have to admit, I don't like anthologies. I don't know if I said that earlier in the video, but I do not historically like anthologies. But someone had said that there is a really strong through line through all of these stories, because basically this follows a bunch of different people during a pandemic that is brought on by like global catastrophe, like the ice caps are melting and it has caused like a disease to get loose. So we kind of follow through all these stories as this pandemic affects people over like hundreds of years. I really thought I was gonna like this, because so many people were like, this wrecked me. It was so emotional. I loved it so much. It was so human. It was so this, it was so that. And I didn't feel any of that, besties. I will say I did cry on the second story. The second story is probably my favorite story. That's the one about the kid that goes to the amusement park. So basically at the very beginning of the pandemic, the disease is mostly affecting children. And so the early stories are a lot about how children are getting sick. And so in the second story, it's about this kid that goes to this amusement park that was created almost like a hospice amusement park that like kills people. So like when you get on the roller coaster, it like puts you through all these loop-de-loops and you pass away very peacefully. And so because no one can cure this disease, these children come to this park. And so this is one about a kid that like goes to that park, and he like has this like makeshift dad, this like stand-in dad character, and there's like a little bit of a romance, and that story definitely did make me cry. But every story after that, I just found the characters to be so unlikable. Like, I don't know if that was intentional. Genuinely did not care about a single person, which is a really tough sell for me if you're only going to give me short stories, because I have such a short amount of time with each person. And some of the stories also were confusing. Like, I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like the story right after the roller coaster story with the kid was literally like a fever dream. Like, I was like, I don't know what's happening. And then at the very end, it gets super sci-fi-y. And so if you're not a sci-fi person, you will absolutely not love this. I really genuinely believed I was, but I don't think I've read that much like hard sci-fi. And I don't even think this qualifies as hard sci-fi, but it was just getting so convoluted at the end. I didn't even know what was going on with like the last 3 stories. Like at one point, some scientist has something in his head. I can't even remember what it was called. It was like an anomaly or something like in his head, and it was like the secret to like space travel or something. Like, I don't even understand. Like, those stories were so confusing. And then by the time I was getting into the deeper stories where sad stuff was happening, it felt like such cheap gimmicks to get me to be sad, like just killing people all the time. Like, obviously a pandemic is super sad. Like, we lived through one. Like, we all know that it's really sad. But with this this fictional one, I feel like every chapter the author was just killing people or like, I don't know, doing things to kind of play with my emotions, but it wasn't really working on me because I just genuinely don't really like short stories as a format. If I can't spend at least a novella length with characters, I'm probably not going to like them. And so this was just such a struggle to get through. Like I wanted to DNF so bad, but I didn't because I just was like, besties, I have to finish it for the video. And also I want more books to count towards my Goodreads number at the end of the year. And so I don't know, I almost didn't read the last few stories and still counted it as read, but I was like, no, I have to persevere for this video. And so I did. And I felt so bad because so many people love this book, especially some of my patrons. Like literally the entire time I was reading this, I was thinking of my one patron who says it's like one of her favorite books. And I was like, Martha will be so disappointed in me. And so I don't know, I didn't like this at all, besties. And at first I was like, okay, like I'm not vibing with some of the stories. That's okay, it's an anthology, there'll be more stories. But I actually would say the further we got, the more and more I disliked it. Like the later stories were absolutely horrendous. Like I did not like them at all. I didn't like the pacing. Like I mentioned, I did not like the characters. I didn't feel for their plights. There was like some weird like marriage cheating at one point of like a girl who's like falling in love with a guy who was like one of her patients because she was like doing like science or something. There was also a talking pig at one point. I can't even explain that to you. And that was the one story that some people were like, oh my god, it was the saddest story ever. And I was kind of like, okay, oink bitch, whatever. Like I don't know, like I didn't care. But I will say, in my defense, I really wanted to read the #1 book that you all voted for, and this is the book that 4 of you said was your favorite. So I'm just gonna hold to that. I was going with what the popular thing was, you know, and I really did think I was gonna like this. Like it kind of has always tentatively been on my TBR. Like I had it saved to my Scribd app for the longest time, which by the way, Scribd changed their name. It's now called Everend, and I have to remember to call it that. But anyway, I had it saved to Everend. It's a horrible name, as a book that I'd want to read in the future because so many people, like booktubers especially last year, said that they loved it. And I don't know, guys, I just didn't enjoy it, and I feel so bad. I'm so sorry, besties. I really wanted to love your favorite books. I really did. The good news is that I did really genuinely enjoy and love Butcher and Blackbird. And then the other good news, even though you guys don't really get to see it here on the main channel, is that the 2 books that I read for my Patreon vlog, I read Nettle and Bone and I read The Last House on Needless Street. I really loved those books. I gave both of those 4 stars. So if you do want to see some positivity, you can head on over to my Patreon. I have a lot of exclusive content over there. So there's a lot there for you to enjoy, not just that video, but other videos as well. So check that out if you want some more positivity. I really did enjoy those books, especially The Last House on Needless Street. I read that in like one day and it was so crazy. You cannot really talk about that book without spoiling it. So I actually did a spoiler section in my vlog on Patreon. But that brings me to the end of this video. If you made it to the end and you enjoyed it, feel free to use the pineapple emoji. I just came to my brain really randomly, but leave that in your comments. Let me know that you made it to the end. It'll be a cute little moment between us. And stay tuned because in mid-December, I will be releasing a part 2 of this video where I read your worst books of the year. I haven't made my TBR for that yet, but I'm a little bit afraid. I haven't really like taken in all the information, but I did get well over 100 responses on that. I think even more responses than I got on your favorites. I think I got like at least 200. So we'll have to see what you guys are hating, and I will be reading, I think, like 3 of those as well, and it will be a good time. Thank you all so much for watching. You're all beautiful. Have a nice day.